There we go. Okay, so thank you. I am very pleased to accept this award, not just because it has a very cool name, but also because 2016 was a really big year for the space industry. Rocket landings became commonplace. And I don't know if you remember, but the first one of these happened at the end of 2015. So all of this has happened within the space of a year. SpaceX and Blue Origin both announced interplanetary launch systems. A new dock was put on the ISS for private spacecraft. In terms of trends, non-government equity investment in private space companies hit $3 billion, which was a big number, but also continuing the growth every year since 2009. So, but just as important as the volume of investment dollars is the number of space companies that have received equity funding and are out executing on their business plans. And there are now hundreds of these companies, 85% of which were funded since the dawn of the entrepreneurial space age. And if Amresh gets to coin new terms today, I'm going to coin that one. Some successes from our portfolio companies. So in this last year, Planetary Resources, the asteroid mining company, closed a $21 million Series A. They went on to bring in another 25 million euros from the Luxembourgish government. Worldview, the high-altitude balloon company, closed a $15 million Series B. They moved into Spaceport Tucson, which just officially opened a couple of weeks ago. Astrobotic, a lunar logistics company, closed a $2.5 million seed round. And at the Berlin Air Show last year, they announced partnerships with Airbus and DHL, the shipping company, which is a pretty big milestone when you think of lunar logistics companies. Vector Space Systems is a microsatellite launcher also out of Tucson. They raised $2 million, and they will begin test launches this year, aiming to get to orbit and take customers in 2018. So Space Angels more broadly, we grew to 230 members in 2016 in 25 countries. And this is the third year in a row that our membership has doubled, which goes to show the increased interest in the sector. And the majority of these people who are joining the space industry on the investment side are coming from outside, as we've hit on a couple of times already. So it's great to see that interest, and it's great to see the momentum, and it's great to see that it's spreading out and getting on the radar of everyday people. Expedition 2016, an annual trip that we take our members on every year, was a huge success. We went to San Francisco, saw a lot of very cool companies, and a few of the people who were in that trip are in this room somewhere. We introduced a new market segmentation to help ourselves and investors make sense of this dynamic new industry. But most importantly, we invested $5 million into 10 portfolio companies. We did this through our online investment platform that really hit prime time this last year and is going to allow us to scale this year in a way that we haven't been able to do before and bring more money into the sector. And now we're really set up to be able to do that. Now we're helping those seed stage companies that we invested in raise their Series A, and we're evaluating new startups for investment. We will be closing on a deal in the next couple of weeks, and we have 3 more coming onto the platform at about that same time. So that's really 2016 in a nutshell. And so I wanted to take just a few minutes and also look to 2017 in the year ahead. So with launch especially, there's incredible demand from new small satellite constellations, as I think most of the people in this room know. Even one new launch system would do a great deal to help alleviate this backlog that we're experiencing today. There was 165 satellites, small satellites, less than 50 kilograms, expected to launch last year. I think we launched 100. And so there's 65 of them sitting on a shelf that wanted to get to orbit but couldn't. This backlog, and that's just on the small satellite side, so this backlog is real. So SpaceX's return to flight at the beginning of this year was very welcome. They've got a backlog of 70 flights and $10 billion, so that's great that we're getting started on that. We've got new small launchers coming on. Rocket Lab is probably going to be first to market, with our Vector coming on right on the heels of that. Satellites. Small satellite constellations have made a lot of big promises over the last few years. And I think 2017 might be the year that they live up to those expectations. And I think Amresh touched on this a little bit in his keynote, but a lot of the disparate pieces are coming together. It's a combination of having a number of new sensors in space, network of ground stations coming online that are going to help people bring their data down. Software and data platforms are coming online, providing the last mile solutions to customers. And we're seeing incumbent space companies opening up their image archives to work with new players for the very first time. A couple other things that I'm looking forward to in 2017. I think satellite servicing is going to be big this year. Finally, this is not really a technology issue. As many of you probably know, it appears regulation is finally catching up with commercial progress in this sector, and that could bode very well for space robotics companies. And in-space manufacturing. A lot of those pieces are coming together that are going to make that a reality. We've got a couple of printers on the space station, a couple of well-capitalized companies with some very interesting contracts coming up and some very interesting plans. And there's an obvious need for that. So bottom line, I see a lot of opportunity in the entrepreneurial space sector, and an opportunity to have a meaningful impact on our future, in addition to outsized financial returns by investing early in this rapidly growing market. And yeah, I mean, we could passively wait for tax dollars to fund programs that will take us to the moon or asteroids or Mars in the 2030s, or we can actively participate in our future, developing a robust industry of space companies that will ensure we continue to progress into the solar system. The only question left is how quickly we can get there and who the players will be. So thank you very much. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the award. Appreciate it.
In terms of space, you're coming at it from a business perspective. What drives you, and where is your passion for this industry?
Yeah, let's start with an easy one. No, there's lots of things. There's lots of reasons why I'm involved. There's lots of reasons why I've, dedicated my career to it and why I am so passionate about it and why I spend so much time. But I think really the thing that got me into it in the first place and the thing that still drives me is the overview effect. So I'm sure probably most of you are aware of what that is, but we've got a lot of problems here on Earth, and I get asked the question all the time as what does space do for us? Why are we spending money on space when we've got all these problems here on Earth? For me, solving these big problems comes down to enlightening ourselves and gaining this new perspective that all of these astronauts, these 500 plus astronauts that have gone to space and have seen this and have elevated their own minds and their own thinking. I feel like, when we've got millions of people instead of those 500 that have gone up and seen the Earth from outside and come back with that new perspective, that's how we're going to tackle these big problems. So that's why.
And why for you is commercial space the way to go? Why should we not just rely on government organisations? Why is the work that everyone here and around the world in terms of startups doing so significant in driving forward a new era in exploration?
It's mostly the pace. That's how I ended my conversation just now was, we could sit back and wait for our tax dollars to pay for this to happen, and we could get to Mars in, mid-2030s or later. Or we could take matters into our own hands and get involved and be part of the solution. Commercial solutions move faster than government. So that's why I think that's the way for us to get there. And we're already seeing it play out with the new interplanetary systems that I mentioned, helping us, the new space stations that are going to be replacing the ISS when it's decommissioned. We're seeing all of that come from commercial companies. They're the ones who are providing, lowering the price, making pricing transparent, and making it more accessible for you and I to be able to access space.
And you mentioned planetary resources, you mentioned worldview. American companies, obviously. What European companies really excite you right now, and what excites you most about the European industry? And do you think Europe's behind, or do you think they're just looking at different routes compared to America?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that question.
2 questions.
Yeah, I think, to have a robust commercial space sector, you need heritage in space. You need a functioning early stage capital market. And you need a regulatory framework that is adaptive and will work with industry as well. And I think that you've got all of those ingredients in a lot of the countries in Europe. And I mentioned a lot of US companies. We've been looking at a number of European companies, and I think one of the ones that's coming up on our platform, 2 of the ones that are coming up on our platform in the next couple of weeks is our European companies. And I'd say, and I'm going to go back to the keynote again because Amers made some really good points that I think that the companies that we're looking at in Europe that we're very excited about are applications. So some of them are on the infrastructure side, but there's a lot of opportunity in the application piece, and in the European startups that we're looking at, some of them have a real leg up on the ones that we're looking at in the US.
Okay, and should we open it up to the audience for a few questions? Does anyone want to raise their hand? Someone raise their hand? There we go. I think someone should come around with a microphone for you.
That's fine, I can object. You mentioned satellite servicing is something that's going to be starting this year. What sort of satellite servicing missions would you envisage happening in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think the biggest need right now is not so much on the deorbiting side, although I think that that's going to be part of the solution. I think that some of the newer players are going to be good stewards of their own pathway and their own orbits. So I think that those are going to be part of the early missions, but I think a lot of it will be for orbital maintenance and for simple fixes. Refueling of propulsion is not too far off, I think, although that gets a little bit trickier. But let's say you've got a satellite up that's got something that didn't deploy properly. Those are the types of missions that I see coming and being the low-hanging fruit on the satellite servicing side.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And in terms of what Space Angels is doing, what is so unique about Space Angels compared to others out on the market?
We're industry focused, which is, I think, new, which is, especially when we started, there was a new approach to early stage investing. There was this idea that you needed to develop a very well diversified portfolio, and you need to go out and you need to invest in a ton of different things. And what ended up happening was that there's all of these different angel groups that are geographically focused. They're more, they're social clubs. You pay a fee, you join, you come together, you have barbecues and things, and it's a social gathering. You'll have dinners and companies will come and pitch, but you'll get ones that are local, and that means you'll get whatever the flavor of the day is. One day I might be sitting there looking at a biotech company, the next day I'm looking at a space company, the next day I'm looking at an agriculture, fintech startup. I don't know about any of these things, but yet I'm supposed to invest in all of them to diversify my portfolio and diversify my risk, right? So there's a few things that happen when you take that approach, that shotgun approach to investing, is that you don't. How are you going to be the one to identify the gap in the market if you don't understand the market dynamics and what's really happening? Second, if you make the investment, how are you going to help that company? One of the biggest advantages of taking capital when you're an early company is to get someone involved who knows what they're talking about, has connections, more established connections than possibly you do at your early stage, connections to customers, partners, suppliers. By being an industry-focused group, we have those connections and we can bring that to the companies that we invest in, versus just investing in a company that I don't know and then sitting back.
And how do you hope Space Angel will grow and develop over the coming 5-10 years? And how can you really support the industry with that?
Yeah, like I mentioned, our platform is really is really in a good place, and we're in a good position to scale and grow and move forward. The members that we're seeing now, we've grown to 230, but it's the quality of members that are joining now that's much more different than it has been in the past, right? It's moved from a place of space enthusiasts to being a much more diverse mix of people who are less interested in space and mostly interested in the money. But we also have, the people who are more interested in impact as well. But we've got a good mix of people. The people who are coming in are seeing the opportunity that as the industry gets more traction behind it, as there's more successes, we're going to see more and more money come to this, more and more money come to the space. So. Yeah, I mean, we did 10 deals last year that I was very happy about. I think we can do 10 more this year and into the future. So yeah, I mean, more deals and larger amounts in those deals.
Okay, any more questions from the audience? There we go.
You said that you would basically be outpacing taxpayer money, sort of. Where do you think taxpayer money should be spent then, or should it be spent at all on space?
Absolutely, I think there's huge societal benefits. So, and I'm not one of those people who says that, that the commercial sector is coming in and taking over and the agencies are doing it wrong and that, the commercial sector is coming in to show them how to do it right. I'm definitely not one of those people. I'm a huge fan of the new approach to public-private partnerships that NASA and others are taking, in that instead of being a benefactor, so instead of designing something and being a benefactor and having cost-plus contracts to build some behemoth, infrastructure thing, being a customer of the service that commercial company is providing and is developing, I think that it's hugely important. And I don't think after SpaceX first got launched, he came out publicly and thanked NASA for their involvement, because I don't think that they would exist today if it wasn't for them. So to answer your question, I mean, it enables, right? So these public-private partnerships allow the government to pay for services that are routine and really significantly reduce their cost, which allows them to use their limited budgets to do bigger and bigger things and push us farther out into the solar system. So that's what I think that the agencies should be doing, is the things where there's not a commercial market. Expanding our knowledge of the universe.
And just to pick up on that point, just as a final question, do you say that in the future, in terms of getting humans to Mars, the stuff that actually really excites all of us in this room, do you think that will come from a public-private partnership? Do you think that's a way forward in terms of enabling exploration of our solar system?
I don't know how else it could happen. It's commercial that's driving it. It's commercial that's putting on, time frames that are well outside the bounds of any government agency if they were going to do it alone. But we're starting to see this play out already. NASA's just put out a proposal for commercial companies, who's going to Mars and who wants to take my robots there. So I mean, it's definitely going to happen. It's going to happen together, just like all the other big projects that we've done have.
Okay, and just finally, just to conclude, what does it mean to you to be involved in this new and exciting era, this new space age, so to speak?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, it hits on all cylinders for me. So for me, it's very important that I make an impact on the world and do something meaningful with my career. This gives me that. I think that space is the ultimate social venture. Like I said, it's the way that we solve all of our big problems here on Earth. Not only that, but there's, it's an exciting new industry with all of the signs are pointing in one direction. They're all Every investor wants to see a hockey stick. I mean, you look at the number of companies, then the amount of investment, everything is going in one direction. So to be involved in this early stage when it's all still a little bit chaotic and dynamic is very exciting for me.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much.